Anyone that has visited acupuncture clinics might be familiar with the drawings of human bodies depicting a series of paths or black lines drawn on the body surface with the acupuncture points along them. But, in fact, the energy network is more complex than that. After having studied them for quite a few years, I have come to devise a graphic analogy to explain the global functions of the different categories of meridians as if they were different components of the structure of a building, the human body building. Initially, we have the 8 Jing Ba Mai, or the 8 extraordinary meridians. In Western acupuncture books, these are the last channels to be explained, just as if they were strange vessels that jump over the main meridians. But after having studied them thoroughly for 8 years, I realized that actually they're beneath the rest. As their function is to induce and accompany the development of the features and the individual along early childhood, if we were to equate them with the analogy that I want to give of a building, they would be the foundations. Such foundations have to be solid and well established because the balance of the whole building depends on their stability. So, 8 extraordinary meridians express our foundation. But only 2 of these appear in the illustrations because they are the only ones to have their exclusive own acupoints. Ren Mai, the most ventral, and Du Mai, the most posterior. That is, the most yin and the most yang, respectively. The only other channels to appear in the named illustrations are the 12 main meridians called Jing Zheng. These main meridians are the ones that govern the day-to-day activities in the body. In my analogy of a building, they represent the living areas, that is, the kitchen, the bathrooms, the bedrooms, the living room, those areas where our day-to-day life circulates. The Jing Zheng do not only follow the superficial levels shown in the illustrations with the acupoints, but each one of them, as well as the extraordinary ones, follow also internal, deeper paths that are not reflected in those illustrations. Sometimes, even we, acupuncturists, tend to forget such deeper energy paths, and we shouldn't, because every meridian has a meaning that has to be taken into account. Following my analogy of the human body as a building, we also find the 12 distinctive meridians, or Jing Bie. These groups would go very deep in the body, let's say to the cellar. The 12 of them passing through the heart. They are very poorly known meridians indeed. I have the feeling that they might have something to do with important organic pathologies, but I still do not have sufficient knowledge about them to explain them at the moment. As with many other things that we have to live with, one must carry our own dose of unwanted ignorance. But in any way, this is another issue. So, up to now, we have seen the foundations, the extraordinary meridians, the rooms, the main meridians, and the cellar, the distinctive meridians. But our building has also a facade, a muscle frame, which is the most peripheral dynamic that allows us to move. Jing Jin are the 12 muscular system meridians that represent this facade function. They are portrayed by the classic tests as the one that circulates at the most superficial level. Their initial points are always located in the extremities of the feet and hands. Starting from there, they travel through certain muscle chains to command our movements. And although the starting points are regularly used by physiotherapists in treatments of biomechanical pathologies, I would like to recall that such acupoints have not only physical, but also important psychological actions as well. And lastly, there's another category of meridians to which I have devoted 3 intensive years up to now, that are the 16 divergent channels. They're known as the Luo Mai. The Luo are not Jing lines. The Luo ideogram means lint or flock that unravels. So imagine we have a loom with a Jing drawing the vertical lines, and then the Luo which on horizontal are drawing the weft of each person's fabric. The beauty of the Luo Mai is that, unlike the Jing, they circulate in transversal. The contribution to the fabric is to bestow the individual with textures, colors, and very different appearances, utterly unique for every single person. As they have communicating functions, I would equate them to the power lines in the building. All the acupoints are actually located upon 2 extraordinary meridians and the 12 main meridians. And although they can act on the entire meridian pattern through the starting points of the other channels, these other channels do not even appear on the familiar illustration of the body acupoints. By this I mean that energy alterations are not always easy to diagnose because the whole meridian network is a rather specific, elaborate, and complex one. To the extent that the puncture, not even the stimulation, but just the insertion of a fine metal needle has the power to rebalance the original dynamics, we could poetically say that has the effect of tuning the man with his macrocosm, facilitating the recalibration of his original dynamic. This theoretical approach to what would be the mechanism of action of acupuncture, which is the point of view from which I do contemplate my patients, in fact, is proven by the fact that in certain pathologies you just induce solely that point to act, and most of the symptoms described in the classic tests, both physical and psychic ones, that in fact reflect the alteration that resonates on that specific points, becomes altogether corrected. In fact, what I mean is that the response to a unique point is often remarkable and validates the consideration that each one of them expresses a very specific phenomena working in the human being. The art of diagnosis lays in knowing enough to be able to identify the target point. And the first step would be to detect the meridian where it resonates. We shall see how the extraordinary vessel's pathology often appears during childhood and repeats throughout life, which is logical as it is located in the person's foundations. Although this kind of imbalance tends to become chronic, it can be corrected with acupuncture.